Hello everyone and welcome to another SBC Youth live stream. It's Tuesday, it's 4 o'clock and we're back with you. We're really excited to be back with you for this week. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're managing to still keep yourself entertained and keeping yourselves busy, especially as the weather is pretty bad right now. I'm looking out the window right now and it's pretty wet and it's likely to be all week. So hopefully, those of us that have been getting outside every day, going for walks, hopefully you will find stuff to keep yourself entertained, keep yourself busy, and keep yourself active and keeping yourself going. So I really hope that you'll do well with that this week. But as usual, before we get started into the main content of what we're going to be doing this week today, looking at our book again, chapter 6 we're on this week. Before I get started with some of that, I want to share with you some notices again. Who doesn't love a few notices? Right, the first one I want to share with you is live on our social media pages, but it is Meet the Team. And this week's Meet the Team member is our very own Liz Foster. So that's up on our Instagram and our Facebook pages. So make sure you go and check those out, whether you follow Southcourt Baptist Youth on Facebook or you're in the SBC Youth group on Facebook or on our Instagram page, you'll be able to find it there. So that's Liz's story about how she got involved with the youth work here at Southcourt, and a little bit of her story and a little bit of what she's up to with us and where she helps out in the different groups that she's a part of. So thank you, Liz, for that, and it's really great to have you on the team with us. As well. So that's the first one that I wanted to share with you this week. The second thing to share with you, of course, is our Sunday Youth at Home, which is going, second week has gone up now. So if you haven't already checked it out, both of the episodes are on our YouTube channel. There should be a playlist for Sunday Youth at Home, so you can catch up with all of them. There's a link in the description below as well to last Sunday's Sunday Youth at Home, which Matt led really, really well, talking about the Bible in context and how when we read the Bible, we need to not only just read it, but we also need to sort of understand the context, the history, the places, the people that we're reading about, which will help to bring it to a new life for us. And it helps us to get so much more out of what we're reading when we understand the context that the Bible is written in. So that was really, really good. If you haven't seen it already, make sure that you check that out. The next one is our Song of the Week. So this week's Song of the Week is from a really, really great guy that I really respect and really like. It's from Governor B. He has just recently released a new album with some absolute bangers on it. If you haven't already checked that out, then make sure that you do. And this week's Song of the Week comes from his new album. It's called Never Let Go, which sort of meshes together a song that he's written and a bit of the sort of the classical hymn You Never Let Go, that song hymn that we probably know so well and love. So if you haven't already checked out his new album, then go and check it out. I know some of you that might be watching this love Governor B as well, and if you haven't seen his new album, make sure you go and check it out. It is full of some absolute bangers, if I do say so myself. So that is the Song of the Week. The last sort of segment for our notices is our question and answers thing that we've just started to do, and we put out on our Instagram. You might have seen it on our Instagram story. We put out a request for your questions, and this week's question comes from Instagram, and it is this is this week's question. It says, is it alright to not believe in the Bible version of how the world was made? So thank you for the person who wrote us that question. Hopefully you're watching this now. It would kind of be awkward if you asked the question but aren't going to watch this to see the answer. But my answer to it starts with my own question. And so I would first answer that question by saying, well, it's not so much about whether you believe in the Bible version of how the world is made, but do you believe that God made the world? That, I think, is the more important question, which trumps that one that you've asked. And it's about, do you believe that God created the world? If so, that's the matter of more importance, that you believe that God did definitely create the world. Now, whether you believe in, like, definitely as written, like hardline, 7 days, God created the world in 7 days, and the story that it says there, that's less important in my opinion. Again, this is all just my opinion. But in my opinion, it's less important about how, we could debate forever about, did God create the world in 7 days, or it was 7 weeks or months or years or periods of time, or it was the Big Bang, it wasn't the Big Bang, all those sort of stuff. So we could argue for ages, but it's about, firstly, whether you believe God created the world. Now, whether you want to believe that actually God used the Big Bang, like the Big Bang is God creating the world. Like when you read it from the start in the Bible story, it says that God spoke and the world was created. Now, I believe that could be the Big Bang, like God speaking. God's got so much power that his voice speaking, creating the world, could have been like a big shout or a big bang that created the world. Whether you believe it to be like 100% everything's created by God, or whether you believe that God has used evolution as well, like evolution is God's thing. For me, that's the lesser debate, the lesser question over whether you believe that God definitely created the world. So I hope that maybe answers your question. Like I say, it's the sort of thing we could debate it forever about whether it was 7 days or 7 weeks or whatever like that. I think the more important question is whether you believe that actually God is the one that created the world. So I hope that answers your question. For some of you that maybe are watching and didn't ask a question, but hopefully that's been interesting too. A little Q&A for us this week. Keep giving us your questions. We're going to keep putting some of those things out there on our Instagram for you to find and ask us some questions as well and get your questions asked. Other things, actually, I said that was the last notice, but it's not. The Zoom hangout that we're doing on Thursday night. If you're part of our Edge or Ignite groups, then make sure, please, that you're coming along to our Zoom hangouts. We're missing so many of you. Like, we're really missing not being able to do Edge and Ignite in the normal way that we would. It's a bit weird on Zoom. We're doing our best. But make sure that you're coming and joining in with us on Zoom. If you haven't already got in touch with us about that, then make sure you send me an email. Get your parents or you to just be in contact with me. We just need your parents' permission for you to join in with that. We need their consent and for them to give us an email address that we can use to contact you and send you the invite so that you can be part of that, because we want to make it safe and secure so that nobody else can join in. It's just us, so we have to do that, sending invites out, and the best way to do that is by email. So make sure that you get your parents to get in touch with us for that. The last little bit of news that I've got... Oh, hey there, Jude. Jude says I'm watching. Good. Last bit of news that I've got that I want to share with you is that this is actually going to be the last time we're going to stream live in this way. We've been thinking about this for quite a while. I've been thinking about it, and I think actually with our Sunday morning stuff that we do, that's a large period of time to sort of come and sit down together. And then the live streaming that we're doing now as well, there's so much, it's like being bombarded with all this stuff going on. And actually, I think it would be better if some of these elements were more separate, spread throughout the week to fill our week a little bit more, than by sort of cramming them all into another 20 minutes, half an hour to sit down on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock, especially trying to fit it around. You've probably got school stuff going on, you've probably got other stuff at home going on, as well as probably wanting to chill out and relax as well. So what we're thinking we're going to do instead is, rather than live streaming on a Tuesday, we're still going to put some content out at Tuesday at 4 o'clock, but as well as some other periods throughout the week. So our question and answers, we're going to use Instagram and maybe our Facebooks and do those as their own separate thing. So we'll ask you for your questions and we'll respond to those through like Instagram stories and stuff as well, so that you can engage with that. And the content that we've been going through, like the book material that we've been doing, we're going to film that, and it will be much shorter and more bite size for us to be able to engage with at your own time and at your own pace, rather than being part of a bigger video. I think it'd be really a lot easier to engage with if it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum of that content. So that's what's going to be happening. So next week, it won't be the same live streaming. It'll be the content from our book will go out on Tuesday at 4, as well as the Q&As will happen every week, maybe a different day. We'll tell you about that as we know more. And that way, sort of our whole week can still have some flavour of stuff, rather than it all being all on one day. We're going to sort of spread it out more, smaller bits throughout the week for us to engage with. So I really hope that changing this stuff will make it easier for you to engage with what we're doing. Hopefully it'll be easier for you to get in touch with it all and be able to fit it around the school and your other stuff in life that you're doing. So hopefully that'll be more helpful. That is all the notices. You'll be glad to know. That's all the little bits of notices I wanted to share with you today. That took quite a while, didn't it? There was quite a lot of notices there to go through, more than we've done in other weeks. So on to our content for today, the 16 and a half ways to upgrade your faith. Hopefully you've been sort of catching up with the last streams that we've been doing and you've been following along. This week we're on chapter 6. So last week, actually let's skip back to last week, we looked at record the story. So last week said record the story. It was about sort of taking note of the stuff that God has done in our lives and through our lives and through other people's lives for us. And that might be through journaling, scrapbooking, writing it down in your Bible, underlining stuff in the Bible, making notes of pictures God's given you, words God has given you, answers to prayer, whatever it might be, taking note of what God's been doing so that we don't lose it, because we're pretty good at forgetting stuff. And it's very easy to forget what God's done. And if we don't record that, if we don't keep a note of that, it's very easy in years down the line to sort of not remember, I remember when God answered my prayer or when God spoke to me in that way. It'll be much easier and more helpful for us to have that recorded. So that was chapter 5, was about record the story. And this week, chapter 6, we are looking at clear the roadblock. So that's what this chapter's all about, and I'm going to explain that for us now. I'll start with the story. So I don't know whether you've ever been to a summer camp or a weekend away or a big sort of Christian gathering type thing. And if you've ever experienced that feeling of the post-summer camp reality check, as I call it. I've just sort of made that up. But this thing of like the post-summer camp reality check, that feeling when you've been away from home and you've left all the distractions that get in our way in our relationship with God, and maybe the difficulties and challenges we have at home and at school and our friendship groups, all that stuff has been left, and we've been able to just really tune in to the presence of God and growing in faith, growing in our relationship with God, hearing from him maybe more clearly because some of this stuff has been out of the way. And then you start to come home and you start to get into the normal routines of life again, and it starts to sort of, you get this feeling coming along. You feel it coming at you, and you're like, oh man, I'm starting to lose my buzz from the summer camp. I'm starting to lose this feeling. It's sort of like you've been driving on a clear, open bit of road, and you can just start to see in the distance there's this big roadblock. You know, it's like they've put up this big barrier. There's something in the way. You're not going to get through on this road anymore, like in a dead straight line on your own. And that's the feeling that you start to get, that post-summer camp reality check. It's like a roadblock in the road. You've been driving along and you come up towards it and you know you're about to hit this roadblock. And for many of these things, sometimes there isn't much we can do about some of these things other than pray and give it to God. Like there's some big things in our lives that we really have no control over, and we have to sort of surrender to those and say, God, you are bigger than all these things. I can't do anything about them, but Lord, I know you can. So that's some of those things. There's nothing we can do about them. But there is some things that we can do some stuff about. And that's the things that I want us to look about today. In this chapter, that's what he sort of speaks to us about. He says that there's some things we can't do anything about other than pray about them. But there are some things that we can deal with, and there are some things that we can do. And I wonder, I'm just going to ask you this question. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, answer this question. What one thing or pattern of behaviour is distracting you from your relationship with God? So maybe literally just take a minute to think about that question. What one thing or a pattern of behaviour is stopping you and distracting you in your relationship with God? I wonder maybe what your answer to that thing might be. Now, whatever your answer to that question might be, I'm sure that you would probably love to do something about it. I know when I stopped to think about this and asked myself this question, there were some things and I was thinking, oh man, like even some things come up that you don't always think about until you stop and think of the question. And my response was, man, I want to get rid of some of those things. Like some of those things are really getting in the way of my relationship with God, and you might be feeling the same. You might want to try and do something about it. Well, let me tell you another story about a group of people from the Old Testament. You've probably read about them. They're in quite a few of the early Old Testament books. They're called the Israelites. They were freed. They were freed from slavery in Egypt by God through Moses. We see that in Exodus. And they were led into the wilderness, and they were on this journey, this open road towards the promised land, the land that God wanted to give them, where He would be with His people, and life could be good again. But between slavery in Egypt, the Exodus, and getting to this promised land, there was this sort of wilderness and journey they had to go on in front of them. It's like they were driving on a road, and along the way there were some roadblocks that came on their road, that came on their journey. They spent periods of time where they had other things come at them, and basically because of fear, because of being scared, being uncertain, and just sort of not having a clear end in sight, they spent 40 years wandering around in circles just because they couldn't get past this roadblocks. They hit a roadblock, they go the other direction, start walking around in circles for 40 years. I mean, imagine that. You've literally been freed from slavery in Egypt, and you know there's this place that God's going to bring you to, but because we get scared and other things are in the way, they walk around in circles in the desert for 40 years. In fact, at one point, they actually said to Moses that they'd rather be back being a slave in Egypt than go on this journey towards this promised land that God has promised them. Like, how ridiculous is that? They would rather be back being a slave in Egypt because it was comfortable and they knew what would happen to them, rather than being walking around in the wilderness because they were scared and other stuff was hitting them. Like the fear of the unknown was worse than the knowledge of being a slave in Egypt. I just can't get my head around that. When the roadblock got in the way, they were like, I can't do that. We're going to turn around and go the other way, because it was comfortable, because it was what they knew. It was like although it wasn't safe, it was sort of safe at the same time, if you see what I mean. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read the stories of the Israelites and the struggles that they had and the way that they responded to some of these things, I can sort of see a lot of myself in the way that they acted. I laugh at them at times, and I sort of think, man, how did you act like that, and how did you respond like that? But if I'm honest, I sort of see what they did and go, yeah, actually that, I would probably do the same thing as well. Hopefully not all of it. Like, some of the stuff that they do is pretty ridiculous, and I'm hoping that I would be able to not do what they did. But some of the stuff, when they get scared about other like armies and other like civilizations and people, sort of they see them and go, oh man, they're too big. There's no way we're going to be able to conquer them and get past them and get through them. So they get scared and turn in the other direction. I'm sure I probably would have done the same thing. Like, I know there's something better out there that God has in store for me, but there's some of these roadblocks in my life that they're just a bit easier to turn away from, or just sort of go back to the comfort and the comfortable, rather than having to try and face those roadblocks and get rid of them. I don't know how you maybe respond to some of those things. For each of us, we're all going to have different roadblocks. We're all going to have different things that get in the way of our relationship with God. For some of us, it might be comfort. It might be that stepping out of our comfort zone is really, really hard. And actually, when the going gets tough, it's a lot easier for us to sort of revert back to that comfort zone, that space that we know of. Maybe for some of us, it's our image. It's like we want people to like us so much that we put out a certain image that people sort of say to us about how is good to look, or how is good to act, or how is good to talk. Maybe that's like on our social media or not. Like, maybe we live a social media life and an actual life, and the two don't really look the same because we want people to like us. Maybe, perhaps it's our relationships. Like, don't get me wrong, relationships are good and they're healthy and they're really like positive for us to have good, healthy relationships. But actually, if striving after having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or just our friendship groups or other relationships, if striving over those becomes the priority in our lives above and beyond a relationship with God, that's when we've got a problem. That's when we have to sort of look at ourselves and go, maybe this relationship isn't really the best thing for me. Maybe this relationship is a roadblock in my relationship with Jesus, and it's having a negative effect on my relationship with God. Maybe it's money. Maybe like you just crave having money because money is like, well, it makes the world go round in some ways, doesn't it? There's that saying. And Not having money makes us feel really insecure and unsafe, and having money makes us feel a bit more safe. So maybe we're striving after having more money because more money means we'll be more secure and more safe. Like we have to save so that we've got money in the bank, and we can't do certain things until I've got that money there. But if striving after money is getting in the way of our relationship with Jesus, then that's a roadblock. That's getting in the way. Or perhaps it's that small little device that fits really nicely in your hand. Maybe even the device that you're watching this on right now. I know that mine never really leaves my side. It never goes too far away from me. And if I'm honest, it probably creates a bit of a roadblock at times in my relationship with God. I don't know, whether you're willing to take an honest look at how much you use your phone and whether that gets in the way. The problem is that phones can be so good, like the Bible app on my phone, and I have a daily devotional on my phone, and so much like Bible and scripture and engaging with friends and helping in relationships. It's all so good, but it also has so much power to be so bad. And I think sometimes the good gets outweighed by the bad uses of our phones. Like if we find that we're glued to it, especially maybe at the moment, like I'm on my phone so much more at the moment than I ever was before this lockdown, and that's partly because it's my only connection sometimes with the outside world. But if that's overtaking my relationship and time spent with God, then that's a roadblock, and that's getting in the way. So we've got to be really careful how much these gadgets, these phones, Xboxes, tablets, other things, how much they do us good and how much they maybe become a roadblock. And that's a really hard thing for us to think about. These are just a few of the more common roadblocks. There's loads of other things as well which can cause a roadblock and get in the way of our relationship with Jesus, for sure. I've just named some of the common ones that you probably were already thinking about when I said what sort of things get in the way, or a pattern of behaviour that gets in the way and distracts from your relationship with God. All of these things, some of them that have their goods, some of them can be really bad. Until we can try and work through them with God's help, then they're always going to be a roadblock, and they're always going to get in the way of our relationship with God. And what he tells us in the book is that actually we need to bring these things to God. Like we said, the things that we can't do much about, as well as these are things that we can do stuff about. Like we can limit how much we use our phone, and we can limit how much we put our image out there for people to know, to like us. We have control over a lot of these things, and it's up to us, with God's help, bringing it to God in prayer and spending time with God. It's up to us to get rid of these roadblocks, to move them to one side, and to be able to keep going on that road with God. That's what he wants for us. That's like the life that he has planned for us. He tells us that he has plans to prosper us and for good. He has plans to give us a hope and a future. I don't know about you, but I don't think worshipping my phone comes into a plan for good. I don't think, spending my life worrying about what other people think about me and my image is what God had in mind when he created me and the life that he's got for me. So that's kind of challenging for us today, actually. For this week, I think it's a real challenge for us to say, what are your roadblocks and what are you going to be able to do about them this week and ongoing? Maybe there's some roadblocks that you can push to one side so that you can spend time in your relationship with God. But I want to finish, as I've been doing, with a psalm that's going to lead us into pray. And this today is Psalm 63. And I'm going to read a few verses from the start of Psalm 63 for us. It says, "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands." And Heavenly Father, we come before you now. We thank you that you, God, are our God. You are our rock. You are the only thing worth giving our attention to. And Father, we want to seek you. We want to press into your presence in these days, in this time of lockdown and in these struggles. And Father, help us this week, I pray, to identify these roadblocks getting in the way and help us to, with your help, put them to one side, to work through them, put things down, and in return pick up good, healthy things that will help us in our path and our journey in relationship with you. So go before us into this week, Lord, I pray. Give us all the strength we need. Give us all the energy we need. Give us motivation to keep going and help us, Father, to keep looking to you, to keep pressing into your presence and to keep wanting and desiring a relationship and time spent with you. We pray all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. I hope this will be really encouraging for you. I hope this will be really helpful for you. I know for me, it's helpful, it's encouraging, and it's really challenging as well. But like I say, this is the last time we're going to stream like this. So keep your eyes out. We'll update you with loads of stuff about on the social medias where stuff's going to go and how it's going to be uploaded. But I really think it's going to be better than doing it like this. Actually, it's going to be easier and more beneficial for us all to be able to engage with it in our own time and in a different way. So until we see you next, God bless and have a great week, whatever this week has in store for you. Take care now.